guys, welcome to your third tutorial. Now I'll be talking about variables today. Last time we talked about data types, we talked about integers, which are whole numbers. We talked about floats or doubles, which are decimal numbers. We talked about lists. We talked about strings, which are a bunch of letters together, and we talked about characters, which are one letter, and we talked about dictionaries, which are keys that have a value. A key which has a value. Now we're gonna start like always by opening the Anaconda shell and typing IDLE. After typing IDLE, we'll get the Python shell or the Python interactive mode. In this mode, you can write a Python code and compile it and see the results immediately. Usually we use this to test one line of code, but if we wanna write a bunch of lines, I'm gonna show you today, you press on file and then you press new file, or you just press Control plus N. So Control N, and then you get the Python editor where you can write a bunch of lines of code and then compile them at the end. So we're gonna talk about variables. You can imagine a variable as a box where you keep something inside, and this variable you save usually data types, the data types that I already told you about just now or in the last tutorial. For example, I'm gonna make a variable named A, and I'm gonna save the data type string in it. It's hello, and then I will make data type variable B, sorry, and I'll save the data type string in it also, world, and I'll make the variable C, and I'll save the data type string in it, which is a space. Space is also a string, or you can say it's a character since it's only one letter. Anyways, now I want to compile this code, and I compile this by pressing F5 or pressing run, and then run module. The code won't be compiled unless the file is saved. So I'm gonna save the file this time on the desktop. Yeah, and I'm gonna call it hello world. So I compiled the file just now and it got saved. You can see it over here. Anyways, and you can see that it said that it's compiled the file hello world.py, which is .python. It means this data hello world is a Python code in desktop, in the user Abdullah, and so on and so on. If you got like C#, it would be CS. If you got C++, it would be .cpp. If you got HTML, it would be .html. If you got CSS, it would be .css, and so on. Anyways, so now I'm gonna use a function called print. So don't worry about the word function. I'm gonna explain it to you function in the future. Print, and then and this function, what it does is it prints something for you on the screen. It gives you an output. So I'm gonna print the variable A, and I'm gonna get the value hello. It's because I saved in variable A hello, and I'm gonna print B. I'll put B as a parameter, so what comes between the parentheses is called the parameter, and it's B. So I'm gonna get world because I saved in B the string world, and I'm gonna print now the whole sentence by A plus C, which is the white space, plus B, which is world. It's gonna give you hello world, and as you can see, you can add variables together, just like when we were working with data types in the last video. You can, for example, change the data type which is in a variable. I'm gonna change all the data types that we have in variable A, B, and C. A equals 10, B equals 20, and C, I'm not gonna put anything in C right now. So I could add two variables with each other. Here A plus B is gonna give you 30. You can also add two variables and save them in a new variable. So C, which is where the white space is, A plus B and then C is equal 30. Now I saved in C 30 instead of the white space. And you can do the same things that we did in the last lesson. You can divide two variables, like A is divided by C, for example, and you get a double or a float, 0.333 period, and so on. So now we know what the variables are. They're just boxes where we save stuff in them, and we can do the same operations that we did with the data types in the last lesson. Now there are a few rules when you name your variable. You're not allowed to use words that are already reserved by the language Python. For example, you got something called else if. I'm going to talk about it in the future, which is this elif. You're going to want to save a variable in it, for example 90. It's not going to allow you because this word is already reserved by the Python language to do a certain task. That's one of the rules. The second rule is the names don't start with numbers. For example, 9x, then doesn't allow me to get a syntax error. You have to keep that in mind. Python allows you to use these kind of letters, but in programming, I advise you to stay away from them and just use the normal letters that you see in the English language and not use those, because other programming languages also don't allow you to use this. Now there is something called camel case. If you use two words in a variable, when you're naming a variable, for example first number, you write the second word with a capital letter. You write it with a capital letter, and it's called a camel case because it looks like a camel back. You can see in the middle there's the capital letter. And third, I would advise you to avoid using, for example, in the future when you program some functions or methods or whatever, don't worry about all those words right now. You're gonna use variables temporarily, and you're just gonna give them one letter as a name. For example, L is gonna be a letter that you wanna use to name your variable, but actually I advise you not to do it, since the L looks like 1. Now I typed 1 in L, and you can barely see the difference. Actually, you cannot see the difference at all. So if you're gonna name a variable with one letter, I advise you to avoid using L as a letter. I also advise you not to use O and not to use O capital, because they're really close to 0. Stay away from L and O if you're gonna name your variable. Stay away from the weird letters, and also don't use words that are reserved from the Python language already. Now there is also one more thing I want to talk about. It's called there is something in programming languages which is called case sensitive. For example, if you're gonna name a variable k and then give it a value 10, and then you got a capital K and give it the value 20, you get those are two different variables, even though you're using the same letter. One is capital and one is small, so they are considered totally different variables. You can K plus K can give you 30, because K small has 10 and K capital has 20, so you have to pay attention to this. Yeah, I think that's about it when it comes to variables. I think it's pretty simple. If you got any questions, you can leave it in the comment section. Yeah, and I hope this was helpful. I'll explain more in the future about methods and functions and so on. Anyways, I wish you good luck.